So we're going to watch a story about Brianna and problem solving with Anthony.
Other people waste stuff like that.
Oh, hey, I didn't know you were here. Awesome, huh? What? You think a kid like me can't do monkey bars? I'm good. Lots of practice. A bunch of kids who go to this school love the monkey bars too. Have you been out here at recess? Everybody wants to play on them. What would be cool is if they had 20 monkey bars, but they don't. They only have one. That can cause problems, like last week. I don't want to brag, but it's a good thing I was here to help. There's these two girls, Brianna and Anna. Everybody knows they're best friends. They even have friendship bracelets that are exactly alike. But they aren't exactly alike. Brianna is really good at hopscotch. And Anne is really good at monkey bars. She almost never falls off. And the rule on the playground is, it's your turn until you fall off. So, what's the problem?
I've been waiting a long time. Recess is almost over. I'm never wanting to turn.
I'm breaking my record!
It's not fair.
Uh-oh.
Hey! I'll never break my record now! It's all your fault!
No, isn't it? You're supposed to take turns and you never did.
I did too!
No, you don't. I've been waiting a million years and you won't get on.
I didn't even see you!
As you can see, these girls had a problem.
Are we gonna watch part 2?
Hey, so how does Brianna feel? How does Brianna feel, Emma?
Mad! And mad.
She's angry,
And sad.
okay, and maybe a little sad. Do you think she's being a little impatient right now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how do we know Anne? How does Anne feel? How does Anne feel?
Upset.
Alicia? How does Anne feel?
Upset.
Upset? Maybe a little angry? Do you think she's a little irritated or annoyed?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what clues are telling us how they feel? What clues, Emily?
One with the yellow shirt on. Her like yellow.
So her face is telling us how she feels. What other things tell us how they feel? Alicia? You don't have to be real specific. We got face. What other thing gives us clues?
What's with their mouth?
Okay, so that's their face. So I heard bodies. What else tells us how they feel? Maybe the words that they're saying. Maybe the sound of their voice. Is that what you're going to say? The sound of their voice. And we know what the situation is too, right? So when you have a strong feeling, you cannot think clearly. You need to calm down first before you solve a problem. Do you think Brianna and Anne need to calm down right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. What could they do to calm down? Emma?
Take belly breaths.
Take some belly breaths.
You could take a deep breath.
Yep, take a belly breath. What are some of the other things that we have on our list to calm down? Breathing,
Counting.
counting, and
Negative.
positive self-talk. Yep. So the first problem-solving step is S, which is say the problem. And underneath it, it also says without blame. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. So the first problem-solving step is S, say the problem. When you have a problem, it's very important to say the problem, what the problem is, out loud or in your head. Think about how you can say Brianna and Anne's problem. How would we say Brianna and Anne's problem? Think about what the problem is and let's say it out loud. What is the problem? What do you think the problem is? Alicia, what do you think the problem is?
That they bumped into each other.
Okay, so that could be one of the problems. They bumped into each other. What else?
They're both mad.
They're both upset. That's a problem because they both need to calm down. What else? What's the situation that's going on right now? You know?
One was on the monkey bars, and one was waiting long that he was deciding to go on the monkey bars.
Okay. So they both want to use the monkey bars and only one person is allowed at a time, right? So that's a problem. They both want to use it, but only one can use it at a time. So the second step in our solution is T. Think of solutions. That means to come up with a lot of ideas to solve the problem. The ideas, though, have to be safe and respectful, so no one's bodies or feelings get hurt. Okay? So pretend you're helping Brianna and Anne. Think of 2 safe and respectful solutions to their problem. What do you think, Sky? What do you think are 2 safe and respectful solutions for their problem? What's one? Can you come up with one? What's one way? We said the problem is that they both want to go on the monkey bars, but only one person is allowed at a time. What is one thing you think that they could possibly do to solve the problem? What happens when you and your friends both want to do something at the same time? Do you both do it at the same time? Or do you fight and argue over it? Or do you...
They do it at the same time.
And what if only one person is allowed to? What do you think, Isaiah?
One should like run off the monkey bars, then go to the end, and then the next one goes.
Okay, so even though one's, so we gotta take turns and we just go one way. Maybe not until we fall off, because some people are really good and then they'd be on there forever, right? What do you think, Brooklyn?
They could do rock, paper, scissors.
So you could do rock, paper, scissors? Alicia?
Logan? I forgot.
Okay, some other things that they could possibly think of doing is Brianna can get off the monkey bars and let Anne finish her turn. That's one possible solution. Is that safe and respectful? Yeah. Anne could take a break. Anne could take a break and let other kids have turns on the bars. Is that safe and respectful?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or Brianna could play something else while she waits. Is that safe and respectful?
Yeah.
So those are 3 possible solutions. So let's see how Brianna and Anne use the first 2 problem-solving sets to begin their problem. To begin to solve the problem. We said S stands for say the problem, and T stands for think of solutions. Yep. We'll go later. We're not there yet. Let's see what they do.
I wonder what they do. It's a console.
You were in my way. You saw me, but you must go.
Okay, I think you both need to calm down.
What is she doing?
Yeah.
Breaths, yeah.
Then they worked on saying the problem without blaming. Okay, this is good so far. You've calmed down and you can say the problem without blaming. So what's the problem again?
We both want to go on the monkey bars at the same time, but only one person at a time is allowed.
That is a problem. So what do you do next?
Think of solutions?
Yes, thinking of solutions that are safe and respectful. So why don't you give it a try?
Maybe you could take a break from monkey bars and let me have a turn. Or you could go play something else while I keep going.
What are some other solutions?
I guess I can keep waiting in line. Maybe when I get on the monkey bars, I can count to 100 and then give you a turn, even if I haven't fallen off.
You're really thinking.
So they came up with a couple different solutions, didn't they? So, you notice when they said S, say the problem without blaming. What does it mean to blame someone for something? Emma?
I'm saying that like they did something.
Saying that it's their fault for something, right? So a blaming statement would have been sounded like, I'm not going to get a turn on the monkey bars because you're always hogging them and you never fall off. That would be blaming someone for what's happening, right? And Brianna or Anne could have said something like, huh? Are you blaming someone for something that they didn't do? I don't know. Okay. So, another blaming situation would be, Anne would say maybe that, it's Anne, right? Anne could say something like, well, I wouldn't have fallen off, it's your turn. Now I can't finish my record because you didn't wait your turn. See how when we say you, or you always, or it's your fault, or because of you, that's blaming someone for something. So when we say our problem, we don't blame others. So that's when they say their problem is they both want to use the monkey bars, but only one people at a time. So they're not blaming each other for their problem, right? Okay? And then T is think of solutions that have to be safe and respectful. Okay? So we're going to see more of this story next time. So let's think about back to Puppy and Snail to help us practice the first two problem solving steps. Puppy was frustrated because Snail had forgotten they were going to play together. What's our first step?
Say
the problem. Okay, so think about how you can say what Puppy's problem is. What is Puppy's problem right now?
That they went to other friends.
Okay. What else? How else can we say that? What do you think, Emily? What do you think? What's Puppy's problem?
That she wanted to go.
Okay. Alan, what do you think? Yeah. What do you think Puppy's problem is? So Puppy thought he was supposed to play with Snail at recess, but Snail is playing with other friends. Now, is there any blaming language in there? No. A blaming language, she said, probably would say, Puppy doesn't have anybody to play with because Snail is forgetting to play with him. He didn't do what he was supposed to do, right? But he's just saying Puppy was going to play with Snail, and Snail now is playing with someone else. There's no blaming language, right? It just simply states what the problem is. So the second step is T. Think of solutions. That means come up with the ideas to solve the problem. And our ideas have to be what? Safe and respectful. So can we think of something that Puppy could do? solve this problem?
I have an idea.
What do you think, Carter?
Go ask them. Hey, so Poppy could go ask them. Hey, you were get play together.
Okay. So, hey, Snail, did you forget we were supposed to play together today? Right? You might remind them that you're supposed to play together. You might ask to join Snail and the other friends that he's playing with, right? Or find another friend to play with. Do you think Snail is Puppy's only friend? No, so you can find another friend. Okay? So Puppy decides, he went and talked to Snail. He says, Snail, did you forget that we were supposed to play together at recess? Snail says, oh Puppy, I did forget. I'm so sorry. Puppy then said, can I play with you and your friends? Your other friends? And he said, of course. So now, do you think their problem is getting solved?
Yes.
Yes. So today we learned that when you have a problem, there are steps that you can take to solve it. What are the first two steps? S stands for, say it together.
Say the problem.
T
Stands
stands for
think of solutions.
And then next week, we will learn about more about letter E and P. Okay? All right, I'm gonna hang this poster up for you guys. But until then, we are done.
Okay.
Sounds
good.
Until 21 minutes. So we
No,
already
were you gonna do one more thing before we get ready?
No, we did. We did.
No.
Excuse me.
You did. Excellent. Come closer, please. Come closer. Thank you, Mrs. Franks.
Where's your tape?
My tape hidden. I can put it.
Okay, I'll leave
Could you
it.
just rejoin?
It was not in our script. So I was going to tell you about what we're going to do. So the whole school is, or not the whole school, but our whole elementary school is going to read this book. And we're going to do a really fun activity once we get done with the book. So every day we're going to read one chapter.
What is it?
It's called A Week in the Woods. Okay, so crisscross. So we're going to read the first chapter today before we leave, and tomorrow we'll read chapter 2. Okay? And the thing about chapter books is, what don't chapter books have? They don't have pictures. So what do we have to do in our brains?
Some of them do that.
Some of them do. What should we do in our brains?
You
We can predict, we can visualize. So if some of you would like to close your eyes, you can. Some of you can just look at Miss Grajan, because the first chapter is not very long. Okay? It's called A Week in the Woods. So Mrs. Gebhardt's class is reading this as well. Everybody in the elementary school is reading this book. Okay? The first one is called Preparations. That's chapter 1. It says, Mr. Maxwell looked at the long checklist and then looked at the calendar, and then he shook his head. It was February 13th, and he was sitting at his desk in his classroom at 6:45 on Friday morning. Put your hand up. Okay. A question was in his mind. Why on earth do I do this year after year? He quickly pushed the checklist out of his head and thought back to the checklist after he thought maybe I should go back. It had been a tradition at the elementary school. Bright and early on Monday morning of the third week in April, the whole 5th grade piled into 3 buses and went off for a week in the woods. Got to go on a cool field trip. And the program was called A Week in the Woods. It was a nature studies, and it was an environmental science with campfires and creative writing and storytelling. It was always the last big event for the 5th graders before they went on to middle school. It was always fun, always memorable. And the person who always made it fun was his 5th grade science teacher, Mr. Maxwell. That's his teacher. The kids look forward to a week in the woods. How many of you would like a week in the woods? I would be a little scared. You don't have your iPads. You don't have anything. You don't have any electronics.
That's the same at kids.
You don't have any bathrooms.
You don't have any boys. You can pee on
It says, all the kids loved it. The 5th grade teachers also looked forward to a week in the woods. But not all of the teachers liked it. Not even most of them. In fact, there was a rumor that if Mr. Maxwell ever moved or retired, the program would change. it might become a day in the woods. And at this last year's planning meeting, Mrs. Leghorn had been heard saying, "This is Whitson, New Hampshire. For Pete's sake, every week is a week in the woods." Mrs. Leghorn was the 5th grade math teacher, and if she got her way, her program would be an hour in the woods without me. She wasn't having a very good growth mindset. But Mr. Maxwell had his program, and this would be the 16th year as the director. He wanted the 5th graders to have an outdoors experience that they would remember for the rest of their lives. So it was going to be a week in the woods. Bill Maxwell was a big man. He cut and split his own firewood, and he had the shoulders and the arms to prove it. So his shoulders showing big shoulders. Yeah, he was strong. He always wore dress pants and a white shirt and a tie to school. Does Miss Grazian wear a tie to school?
No. Because you're a teacher.
And that helped him make him less rugged and less imposing. But it was fair to say that Mr. Maxwell had never had a discipline problem in his class, ever. 45 years old, his brown hair was starting to turn gray. He looked like a man that was 10 years younger. He wasn't handsome, but his face was pleasant and honest, and he had clear blue eyes. How many of you have blue eyes?
I have I don't even know how to read it.
Okay. It says he had grown up in New Hampshire and had majored in environmental studies at the State University. At the end of his junior year, he took part in an Earth Day event at school. That's when Bill Maxwell discovered that he loved to teach as much as he loved the outdoors. He shifted his major to education, and then he was a science teacher. So he must really like the outdoors. Bill and his college sweetheart had planned to get married. But after she graduated, she took a job as an accountant for a big paper company, and they never got married. The marriage never happened. Bill Maxwell could not understand why anyone could work for an industry that hurt the environment. So his wife was going to work for a paper company, and making paper sometimes hurts the environment. Because what do you have to get paper? Wood, which comes from trees. So his wife didn't really like the environment. During his next 3 years of teaching, Mr. Maxwell lived in a boarding house in the town called Attleboro. During the summers, he painted houses and he saved every penny. Then he bought 45 acres of land about 50 miles north of Whitson and bought himself a log house. Do we know someone else who lives in a log house?
Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln. He installed solar panels and a roof, and a small generator that made electricity from steam by his property. Before the first winter settled in, he figured out how to make a converter that would reduce the pollution and the smoke from his wood stove. So he liked everything in his house. Did it hurt the environment, or was it good for the environment? It was good for the environment. Mr. Maxwell's younger sister didn't like the idea of living all alone in the woods. She worked for the Humane Society, so over the years, she made sure that her big brother always had at least one dog to share his home with. Mr. Maxwell's mother had more specific ideas. She wanted him to get married and have some children, but whenever she said that to him, Mr. Maxwell would say, "Mom, remember, I've got children, about 150 of them." Who are his children? He's a teacher, so who are his children?
The kids at school.
Kids at school. At 5 mornings a week, 9 months a year, Bill Maxwell drove the quiet country roads from his home to the elementary school so he could spend the day with his children. The drive in his old blue pickup took him an hour in each direction, but Mr. Maxwell loved his job.
Is this real?
It's just a chapter book, so it's just a fiction book. Sitting at his desk in the morning on February 13th, the program was 8 weeks away. Growing up, Bill Maxwell had been a Boy Scout. How many of you are Boy Scouts? And then an Explorer Scout. Nobody was in Boy Scouts? How many in Girl Scouts?
I was in.
Okay. He's finally an Eagle Scout. He took his Eagle Scout very seriously. Be prepared, that's why Mr. Maxwell's preparation for a week in the woods had started at Thanksgiving. He already signed up 18 parent volunteers to help cook and chaperone. He drove over to the campground, the state park on Saturday, to check everything out. He signed a contract with a Native American man, a storyteller who was going to give a performance about the Abakani and Pennacook tribes. He had even worked out the menu for each of the 13 meals and the 4 evening snacks at the park. Plus, he'd taken care of a dozen other things. He had given out an information packet, and the packet was ready for every 5th grader. A lot of preparations were in place, so the checklist went on. Mr. Maxwell scooted his chair up closer to the desk and got to work. He'd written a letter to the Fish and Wildlife Department Service, and said to the State Park Ranger Service about the schedule. His homeroom kids began streaming through the doorway, and he made 3 more neat little marks on his checklist. It had been a productive morning. That same Friday morning, other preparations were just ending. About 270 miles south and west of Whitson, New Hampshire, something was happening. It was something that was going to impact a week in the woods. It wasn't on his checklist. There was no way for him to be prepared for this. Mr. Maxwell had no idea what kind of trouble was coming his way. But it was trouble. Trouble was heading north. Something was going to happen. Something bad. All right, friends, you have 2 minutes to get ready. Go fast.